Well, here I am again. Today I'm finally dealing with the question I and many others in fact get asked frequently. Is it worth it upgrading from a GTX 1070 to the new RTX 2070? Sure, in terms of pricing you hardly can compare these two anymore, since when buying new at least, prices do fluctuate and in the near future things will most likely change even more. But then again, that's not what this video is about. We wanna know whether or not it is worth it investing in an RTX 2070 if you already are an owner of a 1070 of the Pascal generation. Right off the bat, I'll point out, for full HD 1080p gaming, a GTX 1070 is enough, in my opinion. However, more and more of you guys start upgrading your monitors and now deal with resolutions like 1440p, sometimes even 4K. So no wonder a 1070 might be sweating a little bit, but is an RTX 2070 even good enough of an upgrade for that? How much of a difference is there actually? All that in this video. As for the 2070, I'll be going with Gainward's Phoenix GS variant, and for the 1070 it's going to be the Gigabyte G1 Gaming. So before there's any misunderstanding, I'll point out that I have one of the faster RTX 2070s here for this test. I know I'm repeating myself like hundreds of times already, but for those that are still unaware, Nvidia basically has two different versions out. One is a slower 2070, thus cheaper, and the other one is more expensive and obviously faster. So in order to check which type of a chip you'll be dealing with prior to your purchase, I'd recommend to check online whether your specific model has that faster TU106400A1 chip or not. If the A behind that 400 is missing, you're looking at the slower type of 2070, one could say. How much of a performance difference there really is, I don't know, since I haven't been able to do testing myself yet. One thing's certain though, in terms of specs there's a big difference between 2070 and 1070. In general, one could say the new Turing graphics card, the RTX 2070, is built on the more advanced manufacturing process, namely 12 nanometers. While we do get the same amount of video memory, the Turing GPU is equipped with the new type GDDR6. RT and Tensor cores obviously do not exist on the 1070, so you might miss out on the ray tracing stuff, but do you really? And yeah, the video outputs on the 2070 are now completely up to date, and when it comes to clock speeds, you of course can't really compare those. And this gets us to the next point, benchmarks. How big of a difference is there between these two models? So one very obvious thing you can't unsee, the RTX 2070 is on a whole new level. There are only very few similarities between the 2070 and 1070, one being the naming scheme ending with a 70 and the power consumption, which almost is identical, almost it is. More on that later. I didn't include full HD 1080p tests, since let's be honest, for 1080p a GTX 1070 is more than enough, even when playing at maxed out settings, at least in the majority of game titles. performance. But even at 1440p, the 1070 does well. After all, you have to keep in mind, I did test at ultra-high settings. The 4K results at those settings, on the other hand, are a bit underwhelming though. But then again, same thing can be said about the more powerful RTX 2070 at 4K. For maxed out graphics settings at 4K, there simply isn't enough horsepower available on the 2070, because most of the time we are below the 60 FPS mark, which many of us consider not so smooth anymore. But well, 4K gaming is the wrong topic with these two graphics cards. In most games at 1440p, even the GTX 1070 can keep up quite well. We are almost over the 60 FPS mark at all times. There, however, are exceptions here and there, like the new Shadow of the Tomb Raider and Assassin's Creed Odyssey, although not even the 2070 does manage an average frame rate of 60 FPS at ultra-high settings. So there's that. So is it worth upgrading from a 1070 to the new 2070? Yes and no. Actually, it really depends on how many FPS you can live with. There's no doubt you get a ton more of those with an RTX 2070, but if you're gaming at 1440p, you're still in a good spot with a 1070 too. At least that's what I say, especially when considering the average frame rate. However, some of you might feel the difference of the lower 1% lows on the 1070, which can bother some of us, because those on the 1070 aren't always looking that great, but they're still in the green zone in my opinion. That is. At the end of the day, it comes down to what game you're playing, so I can't answer your question 100% whether or not it is worth it upgrading, because it is a lot of money we're talking about. On the other hand, there's a pretty huge significant performance jump noticeable. The RTX 2070 in fact does at times touch the 2080, I found out. So there definitely is performance available. In terms of power consumption, such a 2070 proves it's extremely efficient. But you're not really saving any money on your power bill, since the power draw more or less is almost identical to the one of the 1070. Both definitely are great cards of different eras and have their performance to offer respectively. What are your opinions on that matter? Do you agree with me, or have you got completely different opinions? I hope I could at least help one or the other person with this video. And as always, thanks a lot for watching.